Hey, this is Tim.
This is Amy.
And you're listening to the Pan podcast. This is episode number 7, Tim and Stephanie's wedding story. And the good news is you don't have to just listen to me running my mouth. Stephanie is actually here. So we have our first guest on the new Pan podcast. Stephanie, say hello.
Hello.
And so it's not just me making up shit. She'll be actually
Both
contributing.
of us making up shit.
Yeah, both of us will be making up stuff as we go along. But before we get to that, we are drinking a lovely cocktail.
Yes, it is a London made. It's on theme with Tim and Stephanie's travel experience for the wedding episode. It is gin, elderflower liqueur, and then lemon juice and simple syrup. Some people add cucumber muddled in. I didn't want to bring a knife to the studio, so I didn't want to slice a cucumber. But so yeah, it's very refreshing. And if the Irish version is with Irish whiskey, but since Ireland was not in their itinerary for their wedding and honeymoon, I went with the gin version.
See, I just love your attention to detail.
Well, we do text I asked Tim if he had a dairy allergy, just so I know ahead of time what he can and cannot drink. So.
No, and like I said, just grapefruit. I can't have that, but anything else is fair game.
No palomas for Tim.
No, and that's sad because I've had one without knowing that was in there.
Oh.
And it was really, really good.
Yeah.
It didn't have, I mean, having one is not really going to matter, but let's not risk it.
No, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So, Stephanie is with us. This is, again, this is exciting. So I debated with myself today whether we were going to talk about the engagement as well as the wedding or just the wedding story.
Y'all don't have time.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe another episode.
Yeah, another episode we'll talk about but she has to come back for that too because she's very instrumental in the engagement story too. But
I was there.
yeah. So, long story short on that, we're just going to say that it was kind of elaborate on me to plan that engagement thing. And we had to outdo that. And to outdo that, we decided this is the second marriage for both of us. We've got our starter weddings out of the way and realized what was messed up in that and what we shouldn't do. And, happiness is for real. So what do we do to do that? And I said, let's go somewhere else. We've done, both of us had big church weddings or church weddings that were moderately
little
large.
church, but still church.
I mean, I got married in the God Dome, the First Assembly of God up on University, the big Coliseum looking.
I didn't know that was its nickname.
Yeah, well, I call it the God Dome.
Jesus Dome, yeah.
The Jesus Dome. But we've done that. And if this was a first wedding for either of us, yeah, I can see that. But it wasn't. And I'm like, let's go somewhere. But it's really cliche for people to go to, not if you did this, I'm not making fun of you, but going to Jamaica or some Caribbean place, Dominican Republic, that's just not for us. That just wasn't. She's a big beach person. She gets that. But let's do something because we are really, even before we knew how big of fans of Europe we were European fans.
Right.
Yeah. And we've been once.
Well, but we had, the year before.
Yeah.
We went in March and April of 2013.
Springtime in Europe.
Well,
Pretty.
Well, you would think.
Uh-oh.
So let's back up to 2013.
Okay.
The temperature in Amsterdam, Brussels, and Paris never got over 35 degrees.
In March or April?
March into April.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was the coldest that they had in a long time.
Yeah, that year, so Easter, we got into Paris on Easter Sunday.
Which was April 1st.
Which is
April Fool's
1st.
Day.
Yeah, and while we were in Paris, it wasn't that day, but one of the nights that we were in Paris, it snowed. So, yeah.
That's kind of
It didn't
neat,
stick,
though.
but
Yeah.
it was nice to, yeah.
Yeah. So that was in 2013. We got married in 2014. So we started talking. I'm like, let's go somewhere else. Where would we go? So we immediately, I started researching Germany because her maiden name is Hess, and that's German. And she knows. She has it narrowed down to one small town in Germany where her family is like buried in the church. Mm-hmm. So I said, let's look at that. And it wasn't hard to get married there. It was really 2 days notice is all they needed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was basically just making sure you weren't related. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's look at other places because, we knew that we were fans of Paris. But in Paris, you have to have an address for 45 days. So you had to be so if you see on TV people talking about, oh, we went to Paris and got married. No, they did not.
That is some good information.
Yeah, so you have to. And Italy, we looked at Italy. In Italy, they have a 20-day bonds, BANS. And what that is you have to print it in whatever town that you're going to get married in, whether it's Rome or Naples or Florence, Venice, any of those. You have to print it in the paper to announce that you're going to get married. And anybody, for any reason, for 20 days, can dispute it.
What?
So someone could just be an a-hole.
Yeah.
And go, no, I don't think they should get married. And then there's a disruption.
A wedding troll.
Yeah, a wedding troll. Exactly.
Can you imagine the drama? I mean, maybe I'm making judgments about Italy, but I just imagine the drama that happens in some of those little towns.
So, okay, let's try England.
Yeah.
England is 15 days to be there. Ireland, 15 days. Scotland, we didn't look at Wales, but Scotland was also 2 days. Oh. Turns out Scotland is the elopement capital of Europe.
Wonder why.
People will go to Scotland to do that. So I'm like, but do we have any connection there? Just to go is cool, but I would like for it to have meaning. That's why we looked at Germany first. And it just turned out that doing some research, my mother's maiden name is Houchins, which we always thought was German. It's not. It's an offshoot of Hutchins. Or they call it a bastardization of Hutchins because when you come across on the boat and you go to Ellis Island and say, "What's your last name?" It's Houchins. Okay, Houchins it is.
Yeah.
So, and that was part of the MacDonald clan. And so I knew that the year before, and we had gone to the Renaissance Fair.
I was going to ask you about that because I love bagpipes. And there's like a bagpipe day at the Renaissance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we were there, and I found a legitimate kilt, full wool kilt, the whole 9 yards. And that's where that term comes from, because they take 9 yards of wool to make a real kilt.
I didn't know. No one knew that. I guarantee you no one listening knew that.
Now you do. Thank you, Trivia Tim.
Trivia Tim.
But I found it, and it came, and I didn't know what I was doing because I was trying to wear it like pants down around the waist, and that's not how you wear a kilt. You wear a kilt across your belly button. The formal kilts, the utility kilts, you can wear like pants around your hips. So I didn't know what I was doing, and I said, well, when it came time for us to choose Scotland, I was a travel agent at the time, and I told her, I said, look, I'll handle the honeymoon if you will handle the wedding. And I'm going to let her tell how that worked.
Yes.
Because it worked out perfect.
Okay.
I did a good job.
You did a great job.
Yeah. So I began by researching. We knew we wanted to get, if you're going to get married in Scotland, like the first thing you think is castle. Everybody thinks of castles. So I started researching, and I knew that I wanted to have as much kind of in-house as possible. So one of the things that will probably come up a lot in the story is that if there is such a thing as the opposite of a bridezilla, like that was me. Like I had done all that before.
Yeah.
I had fussed about dresses and details and stuff. And I didn't wanna, like, I just wanted to like take the trip and like get married. So I started researching, castles that had wedding venues and had like built-in on-site planners that I could just like work with the planners and where you could stay on site. So that kind of narrowed it down a little bit. There weren't like a whole bunch to choose from. And then I found this castle, which up until we actually got into Scotland, in my head, I pronounced as Delucy.
And
not how
actually,
you say
it was when we went to the store in Greensboro, he corrected us.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I forgot about that, and we had to be corrected by several cab drivers in Scotland. But
Yeah.
so I looked that up, and it's Dalhousie Castle.
Oh, not
outside of Edinburgh, and
In
it
Bonnyrigg,
is Bonnyrigg.
Midlothian.
Yeah, Bow Butts to be exact. Bow Butts, I guess. And it came up like basically first on a search of that it was a hotel and castle and wedding venue.
Oh, perfect.
And they had a planner who, it's not the only place that she does weddings, but it's like one of her main venues. So
Shout out to Kimmy.
Oh, Kimmy. Kimmy was awesome. Kimmy was the wedding coordinator that I got kind
Litu.
of placed with. Yeah,
Litu.
Litu Wedding Consultants.
Leave it to us.
Yes.
That's clever.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know why in my head for the entire time that I corresponded with her, I guess because I thought Kimmy was kind of a cute name, I expected somebody like in their 20s.
Right.
They're not. She's probably...
She's older than we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't say much older because she's a lovely lady and I wouldn't guess at her age, but she is older than us.
Yeah.
So I forget how I actually got connected with her, but I think once we looked and we saw the availability, I think we booked, I don't even remember. It's been a while now, but I either went through her to figure out what the available dates were or we booked the rooms, one way or the other. But we had I was looking at available times and September was good. We wanted to do September, October because that's a good time to travel to Europe. And it was the way it worked at the castle was if you were a Moneybags and you wanted to invite a lot of people and have a big reception, then you had to rent the entire castle over the weekend. Like if you had a weekend wedding, it had to be the whole castle. But because it was essentially an elopement and it was just going to be the two of us, we could choose a weekday if we wanted.
And there's a reason we picked the day we did. We met on a Tuesday, so we got married on a Tuesday.
That's cute.
So I worked with Kimmy for available Tuesdays. And so we picked the date and then we did everything after that over email. And she was great. What it was that I paid her a flat fee and then she went and hired out and contracted out for everybody. So hairdresser, flowers, just everything.
The kilt hire.
Yeah, the kilt hire. So, I didn't have to like...
Photographer.
Yeah.
What about
photographer
food?
was awesome.
Was catering?
It was through the castle.
Okay.
So, so they provided... What was in the package was...
The canapes.
Some little canapes after. And then actually the dinner that we had that night, that was all wrapped up into the fee that I paid her too. So I just sent her pictures. I went on Pinterest and found pictures of like hairstyles that I liked and flowers that I liked. And I said, I am not going to like be nitpicky about this. Like we're not going to, I promise that we will not go back and forth, but like, here's some stuff that I kind of like. And that was really all it took. There was not a lot of like, just, detail and everything. She hired everybody, showed up and it was all good. She was also really great that like when she first gave me the price, first time around, I was all of like 23 years old and like, mommy and daddy paid for the wedding.
Right.
And trust me, that wasn't anything extravagant at all. But, this time we were paying for it. And so when I first saw the price, which I have to say now that I'm talking to friends that have gotten married since we have, it was so inexpensive. I mean, compared to what I see people doing right here in Winston-Salem, so inexpensive. But I immediately was like, oh, yikes, And so I immediately started saying, well, let's take stuff off. I can do my own hair. It's fine. Take the hair off, take this off, take that off.
Kimmy's like, whoa.
Yeah. And she was like, you know what? I can absolutely do that. And I will do that if you want. But I do want to show you itemized. If you take all those things off, I think it was only going to take like $500 off because most of the charge was in, like, she filed the paperwork with the registrar for us.
Wow.
She did all of the legal background and everything. She was like, it makes so little difference. She was like, for the trouble that you're saving, like, just go, it's your day to go ahead and do it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I took her advice, which is unusual because I'm a huge cheapskate. But I went ahead and did it. And she was just great. I mean, the people that she hired were unbelievably good. And she gave very good advice. So do we have time for me to tell the wedding dress story?
Yes.
Okay.
So Amy, this is the circling back around that we had said we would talk about.
Okay, yes, good.
Oh,
Yes.
Lord. So, again, not a bridezilla, right? So my first plan of getting a wedding dress is like, I don't want anything fancy. I don't want a big deal. Just give me something white. I don't want to spend a lot of time or money. So I had gone to, David's, and of course then I ended up finding something I really loved and spent more than I meant to. But like, I was just very chill about everything.
She's so chill that she didn't
chill.
even have shoes. See, she just bought them and like, okay, so what shoes you're going to wear so we know where. And she goes, I don't know. I haven't.
They were really upset with me. I realized that like there is a level of not bridezilla that's equally and oppositely bad.
The
like,
underprepared bride.
Yeah. Like I really didn't realize that I was stressing them out.
Oh.
So I showed up for my final fitting in like these hippie, like wood block, like shoes. I don't know. And they're like, where are your shoes? And I was like, well, I don't know. I haven't gotten any yet. And they were like, how are we supposed to do your fitting? How are we supposed to know what the height of your dress is going to be? And I was like, I said, well, I mean, you can do it based on these shoes because I guarantee you I'm almost 40 and I will never, ever wear heels higher than this ever again for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, but we have to know. So I literally just went to a shelf and I was like, these, where are these? So yeah, I was like, and so part of my chillness was that, and procrastination was that by the time we, settled on a country and settled on a time of year and like got the little details together, by the time we actually booked for September 2nd at this castle, I think it was like July.
June, July. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like midsummer. We were like just on like the cusp of having enough time to like get the paperwork filed and everything. So I forget who brought it up, but somebody said something she said something in an email about a marriage visa. And I was like, a who?
Oh, no.
She was like, have you applied for a marriage visa? And I was like, I don't know. And so it turned out that if I had wanted to apply for a marriage visa, it was too late.
Yeah,
like there was no way that we were going to get it done in time.
The good news is,
So yeah,
you don't have to have a marriage visa to get married in Scotland. But if you arrive at Scotland and they say, because they always ask, what's your business here? Oh, we're going to get married. Where's your visa?
So you just say you're there for vacation or
And
something.
yeah, so
Okay.
and if you tell them that you're going to get married and you don't have one, they either deport you or
They will detain you,
or fine you the visa plus a fine.
Yeah. So she very helpfully, I will not say that she gave me advice because she was very clear on saying, I am not telling you what to do.
Tim and Stephanie sneak into Scotland. That's the episode title.
Yeah. She was like, here's what she works with a lot of American couples. She was like, I've worked with a lot of American couples and most of them don't do a marriage visa. She said, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you that a lot of couples don't, and it's fine. She said, it is legal, but she told me the whole thing about, they will ask you why you were in the country. And if you say you were there to get married, you could get detained.
So remember, I was a travel agent. So the excuse was, I'm a travel agent. I'm checking out the country. Plus, it's a well-deserved vacation.
So here's where we get to the fun, like only a non-bridezilla like me could have handled this, I think. So, she gives me the non-advice advice. And I write back, I'm like, thank you, so helpful. I said, but I just realized, I wrote back like after a week, I was like, I just realized, how am I supposed to explain the giant garment bag that says David's Bridal on it when we're saying that we're here for a vacation? Like, how do I, they're going to look. And she said, well, I'm not telling you what to do. She said, but a lot of brides will carry it in a suit, bag or something like that. Well, I still felt weird about it. And for a non-bridezilla, it had a big skirt. It was a big dress, and I was like, I don't know if I can get it in a suit thing. I was super worried. So I went to Bed Bath & Beyond and I got a space bag.
The vacuum
as seen on TV. And I put the dress in a space bag, sucked it. I got it down to the size of, I would say, like small, like volleyball, like probably smaller than a basketball.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And actually, it was more flat than that. So
yeah, it was kind of, I kind of
actually,
it
was actually like a small pillow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And put it in my carry-on and carry that sucker.
Yeah, because she would not trust it on checked bags.
Yeah.
And we'll have this discussion in a minute as to why that was probably smart. But I put my kilt in my checked bag. I said, well, you know what? If it's down to the nitty gritty, then we'll make do some other way.
Yeah, you're lucky you weren't pantsless then, but yeah. So I did have it in my carry-on. And so when we got to the castle and checked in and everything, I just put this little space bag across the desk. I'm like, can I get this pressed
or steamed?
Steamed,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and they steamed it for me, and it just fell right out.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah,
it was great.
So I mentioned in the travel woes episode, that we flew from Greensboro to Philadelphia, and we got to Philadelphia. We looked at the gates, saw our flight. Everything was great. And I said, okay, well, we have plenty of time. There was a 3-hour layover or whatever. Let's go grab some food at this. There was like it was basically an Applebee's it wasn't Applebee's, but it was, if you think of that, in the airport. So we ate that and moseyed our way over to the gate, and there was a shload of people there. I mean, shload. So like 300 people.
It was definitely a plane full of people.
Yeah, and then we're like, okay, well, we must be in the right spot. And then they called for the Munich flight, and everybody got on that, and we were looking around, and we were the only two that was left. And luckily, there was still a little bit of time before the flight left. I'm like, okay, well, maybe people just show up. Nobody was showing up. So that's when someone popped out of the walkway up the ramp, that connects you down to the side of the plane. And I'm like, well, we're supposed to be on the flight to Scotland, and we noticed that it's not anywhere on the displays. And they goes, oh, they moved that. Let's check. Yeah, you're in Terminal 2, gate whatever. And we were in Terminal 3. So she looked at me. She goes, run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a movie. She just goes, you better run. We go,
so we busted ass. Really, we were. I told her, I said, you just bring whatever. She had the carry-ons. I had like rolling things. I said, let's just go. And we were booking it.
Yeah.
And got to the end of the terminal, got in the right terminal, and
they were calling us.
I'm sweating like a pig, and they were calling, Beeman party of 2. Beeman party of 2, come to gate, blah, 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 blah. And so
Just
we
like
were,
that.
Yeah. So we were booking it, and there was this cart that came by with this girl on her cell phone, just whatever, the golf carts, and she was on the back, just nonchalant, and we're like, man, that would be nice. And we get up, we hear Beeman Party of Two, final call, final call, Beeman Party of Two, and I yelled out, "We're coming!"
Gosh.
As we walked and ran briskly. And we finally get there just in time to watch the girl who was on her cell phone get off the back of this cart when we could have actually gotten a ride on that. She got on the plane right before we did, but they weren't calling for her. At least we didn't hear it because we just heard.
She probably had somebody on the cart, like radio or whatever, that, I've got this passenger. And on the way.
Probably. And so I was the last person on because I always let her go first.
Aw.
And they nearly bumped my ass with the door closing it.
Oh, geez.
And by that time, everybody was looking at us like, you're the reason we're held up.
Yeah.
And at that time, too, none of the overheads had any room whatsoever. So we took an 8-hour flight with suitcases, carry-ons under our feet. And
My space bag wedding dress was also a footstool.
Oh,
yes, yes,
oh, no.
yes. So that was just rough. And then the girl, it was a 3-seater in our aisle. And the girl that was in the window seat just fell asleep. Okay, great. Well, she's not able to do a whole lot of sleeping on a plane. And I just can't. It's physically impossible for me unless I have, the proper equipment to put on my face. And she nodded off just barely. And just at that moment, the girl in the seat decided, I've got to go to the restroom. So she had to climb over us, tripping all over our
Your wedding dress.
Yeah, our all that stuff. And then
I think it was probably 4 hours into the flight at least.
4,
And I'd finally stopped freaking out.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. But we get to Edinburgh, and it was a very easy getting off the plane and walking through all the stuff and waiting on the luggage to come through and asking us, what are you doing here? And I'm like, well, I'm a travel agent, and it's just a well-deserved vacation. And they said, okay. And they stamped it. It was 5 minutes at the most. And we got our luggage, and we had a car rented because I'm a big proponent of hiring a car.
And I will say, just to preface, so whenever we think about this trip, in our trips to Europe, we've gotten real good at the, subway / underground / metro, Subways, yes. I'm looking for a word, I'm not catching it, but there is none in Edinburgh, so there's a lot of cars and cabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first night we got there, we did not stay at Dalhousie Castle. We stayed at the Dalmahoy, which is an old castle that is now a golf resort. And it has...
And apparently, it's a big deal golf resort, too. We really had no idea.
Yeah.
Because we don't play golf.
So, you know how it is when you're traveling overseas. You get there early in the morning, and most hotels don't allow you to check in until X time.
Yep.
And so we got there at 8 o'clock in the morning, got our car and got there, and neither one of us slept because we couldn't. And so we needed to kill some time. And we're hungry. Those sodium-laced meals that they serve on the plane was not fulfilling and wasn't great. And here we are in Scotland. Let's have a Scottish breakfast because they had that. Had haggis for the first time.
I was going to ask you guys about haggis.
So good.
It was so good. But there's a trick I have found about haggis that you need to know. if you're going to have haggis, honey, put honey on it. It takes most of the gaminess out and just leaves you with a savory sausage-like thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's spiced similarly to sausage. Like you can taste like sage and things like that. But yeah, you're right. There's like a tiny little bit of gaminess in it that you're like, but yeah.
But honey
fixes it.
offsets that. So we ate that, and then we just walked out and sat on a veranda that overlooked the 18th hole and the first tee box. They were next to each other. So we sat and watched. I say watched. We were like zombies watching.
I fell asleep like immediately.
And as soon, put my feet up and sat back for a second. And as soon as I watched this guy, because it's very serene, very quiet, we both just kind of nodded off.
I don't
and
blame you.
and they had to come out and wake us up to tell us our room's ready. But that room, that elevator in that spot was probably the stillest, quietest elevator we've ever been on.
Stillest elevator?
I mean, you get on it and the doors close. and nothing happens. And you're like, all right, you hit the buttons. Nothing happens.
Ew.
And then the door opens and you're in a totally different spot.
What?
So it moves. It is just very still. You don't feel it moving. You don't hear it. It just like it's magic. It opens the door and you're in someplace else.
Sherry Berry who?
Yes, right. Yeah, that's right. Or is now Jordan?
Yeah, who is?
Yeah,
no
so-
one cares.
Yeah, it's not Sherry Berry. So, but really, it was a wonderful space. We only stayed there that first night because we got there on a Sunday, and the Dalhousie was still booked from a weekend wedding that they had.
Yeah.
So the next day, I mean, we went that day and went downtown Edinburgh. We had a ghost tour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about all that because are they do they live up
so
to your
good.
expectations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So good.
So we get there and we're walking around looking at stuff and having a couple of beverages and stuff. And you hear, we were just standing around. I think I've told this story before, but we were just standing there and you hear, "Ah!" And we were like, what the hell? And it was the tour guide.
That's great.
And she took us along looking at old churches because what's not creepy about church? And then we got to go in the catacombs. And
Oh my gosh. And the catacombs, it was candlelit. And so she would go in and put a candle down. And then, we would stand there while she told about, what happened in that room or, whatever they thought. And then it was the person at the back of the group could basically blow the candle out, and so we left each room dark. And Tim's self-control was very good because because I know whenever we do something scary like that, I don't like to be scared. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And you can look at his face right now and just the idea of having an opportunity to scare somebody, he loves it. He loves it. And I knew him well enough to know that he would be so tempted to go, "Bah!" or get me or something.
so if you're looking at us on YouTube and you see Stephanie next, if you see us standing up, I am 6'2", she is less than 5 feet. And she got in my face with a finger and she says, "You will not scare us."
Oh yeah, I was because I could see his face doing the thing that you could see right now. I could see his face, and I literally looked at him. I was like, "Don't do it."
Oh, you put
resist the
again,
urge.
the finger went in my face, and you were up in my face as much as you can get there.
I forget the exact words, but I basically was just like, "We will not get married. I will not
There
do
is
this
still
if
time.
you do this to me." And,
That's amazing.
And he did not.
Yeah. So, and that was really, really great. And so we were still pretty tired. We have a rule when we travel overseas that when we get into our room, we spend 2 hours to take a nap to kind of acclimate ourselves, but no longer than that,
Right.
because you need to get up and then go to bed at a normal time to get yourself acclimated to the time. That eliminates a lot of jet lag if
Yeah.
you do that.
Wake up before dark.
Wake up before dark. Yes. So, first night we did that, and then we went to the hotel, got up the next day, caught our car to Dalhousie. And then we get there and we took a car back to the Royal Mile, which is the main strip in Edinburgh. We had to do the kilt hire, and we had a couple other things we just walked around looking at. There was a Scotch museum that we went into but did not take the tour. We did.
We bought a bunch of other stuff to go with the kilt. We
Yeah,
bought
yeah. We a scarf, because tradition is when the bride takes the colors of the family colors. So
Okay.
mine is the McDonald tartan. So we bought something that she could wear.
Now, I will say, I'm going to put this out here for anyone who planning a similar trip. Only afterward, like years afterward, I came across some kind of like travel blog or thing. It's about traveling to Scotland or whatever. And they were saying brides always do the thing with the sash. And they were like, we hate that. It's stupid. Like brides here don't do it. Like that's like an obnoxious American thing. And I was like, oh, sorry.
But Kimmy helped with it though.
Well, and because she was very sweet, yes. And so, I mean, obviously I'd said, hey, I brought this, I want to do it. And she was like, absolutely, you know. So,
Yeah.
but later I was like, oh, sorry.
We
But
need to get Kimmy on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Somebody reach out to Kimmy.
she was great.
She was great. And then all that, we got all the stuff taken care of. We went back to the castle and then went back to the Royal Mile that night. We had a wonderful dinner at a place called the Monteith.
Yeah.
And it was, and we told them that we were getting married the next day, and we had our desserts and 2 flutes of champagne gifted to us for that. And then went back and got up the next morning and went and had breakfast in the atrium, and then we split. She went, got ready, had all of her hair stuff done. It took me probably longer to get into my stuff because getting into the kilt is about a 20, 25-minute
Wow.
process of all the things I had to do. And so they took me, once I finally got myself situated, I went where, because Kimmy's husband, who has since passed away, rest in peace, George, but Kimmy was her witness and George was mine because we didn't have anybody there.
Right.
So they stood in.
It's built into the whole
Whole
package.
thing package.
That's
That's what they were
awesome.
doing. And so I had to meet them at the library bar. So there's pictures I'll show you later. There's pictures of me sitting in my kilt without the jacket, the Prince Charlie jacket, but I had everything there, my sporting, all that stuff, and with Grand Marnier, because that's my drink of choice. And they had opened
Noted.
up the bar and brought that to me. And then they finally came and got me Andrew, our piper. Andrew was his name.
The piper.
Yeah,
like
we-
bagpiper.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
So he piped me down, and here's the funny thing about this spot where we got married, and this happens in Scotland all over the place. It's law. You have to tell them the exact location that you're getting married. So if you plan an outdoor wedding and it rains, you can't move it.
Ooh.
So it has to be coordinates exactly the spot. So Castle Dalhousie has what they call the gunroom chapel. I am non-religious. I did not want any mention of religion, anything in the vows. And we were only allowed 3 different variations of what we could talk about in a civil ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Since it was civil, we got married in the gunroom. Had it been religious, it would have been in the chapel.
Okay.
It's the same exact room. but that's what they
just
called
changed
it.
the
Yeah.
name. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Andrew piped me down, and I stood there, and I met with the registrar actually beforehand. I think
We
she
both
did too.
did, yeah.
And because they had to hire the registrar to come there to do that.
Can we clarify what piped down means?
So Andrew used his bagpipes to play Scottish music from
Like escort him.
from the top floor of this castle down to the sub basement where the gun room was.
Okay.
So he played Scottish music all the way down. He escorted me down. Then
Okay.
once I was there, he went and got her
Oh, wow.
and piped her down to me. And then when they got down into the room, they come halfway down the steps and he stopped.
Yeah, so he looks at me, and actually, so I think this is when I think the conversation was actually when he came up to get me in my room where I was dressing. I don't remember. It was either there or like partway down. But anyway, so he comes to get me. We get partway there, and he was all like friendly and chicken, sweet little good natured older guy, and he goes, "So, are you ready?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, And he goes, "So, are you sure this is you consent or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, whatever." He looks at me and goes, "No, dear, I'm serious." And I was like, "Oh,
She
Yeah.
wasn't. He wanted to make sure, and it's law that I wasn't coercing her into
Oh,
doing
goodness.
something.
yeah." So he had to like make that final check that like this was like
Her decision.
by consent, and I was like, "Oh, well, yeah,
Well,
sure."
that's nice of him.
Yeah.
And then
So it's like he sort of gave me away in a weird way.
yeah. And then piped her all the way to me. And the registrar was there, and we did our vows. I made the registrar cry.
With your
This
sentiments.
drama.
Yeah, because again, I was only repeating what she said, but I said it with conviction.
Ooh.
And
And they were good vows too.
They
like
were.
I was impressed.
we have used
I mean,
those
they-
vows twice
Yes.
because I am ordained to marry people.
Oh, cool.
I'm not religious, so I am. I don't even know what I'm. Secular humanist as far as what I'm registered as a ordained minister. But my best friend Eugene, who is the you okay there?
Yes, I'm good.
Who is the program manager for Camel City Radio, the radio station we own here. He and his wife, I married them.
Oh,
and
okay.
we used our vows and just changed some stuff. And then my sister,
Oh yeah.
when
Sorry. No, you're fine.
before that ended, I renewed their vows for them in Boone and used that as a basis. We didn't use it exactly, but for Eugene, it was almost verbatim doing that. But and then we had to sign the marriage license. And the story I like to tell, because everyone always asks, you haven't asked, so I'm going to go ahead.
no.
I'm going to tell you
What am I missing?
the thing with kilts. What do you wear under it?
Oh, I assume nothing.
Nothing exactly
Okay,
what I wore.
maybe
so
that's why I
we
didn't
call
ask.
that unbreached. Because some people do. I chose not to, but she didn't know whether I did or didn't.
Yeah.
So she says, "Did you?" I'm like, "You have to find out."
Oh.
So while I was signing the thing, she found out.
Yeah. So he chooses that moment when I'm signing the marriage license, just lean down and go, "I'm unbreached."
There's no better time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then all the pictors, and it was great. And we went upstairs and had our canapes, profiteroles, and other implements of hors d'oeuvres. And then we changed clothes and went back to Edinburgh. First thing we did was go to a holiday store. It was a Christmas store. And we walked in, and the lady who owned the shop, she's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, we just got married." She goes, "Oh, yeah, when?" I said, "About 35 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago." She goes, "Cool." And she made us a wedding ornament. It was just married and had the date and our names. And she goes, "This one's on me."
That's sweet.
And handed it to me. And then we bought something for my mom. We walked out of there, went across the street to a bar, a pub. And "What are you doing here?" "Well, we just got married." "When?" "About 45 minutes ago." "Well, here, have a whiskey."
That's amazing.
And so we both had a whiskey, went to the next pub. "What are you doing here?" "Well, we just got married." "When?" "About an hour ago." "Here, have a whiskey."
That's so perfect.
And we did that all the way up the Royal Mile. Now, we did go down to the bottom because she wanted to see Holyrood, or Holyrood. And that's where Mary, Queen of Scots, she actually married one of her husbands there. And she was sort of detained there for a little bit before she was beheaded. But then we worked our way back up, and we bought the sporran and my ski and do, which is a little decorative knife that you wear in your kilt hose. So
Kilt hose.
yeah. So the kilt hose that I wear comes up just under the knees.
That you wear daily?
No.
You said wear as in present tense.
Yeah. In when I'm in formal wear.
Okay.
And I have the flashes. I chose just to go black instead of trying to match the tartan. And then the ski and do goes there. The only thing I don't have is a Prince Charlie jacket and a kilt pin. But we bought the sporran, which is the purse thing that goes in the front, and it serves two purposes because true kilts do not have pockets.
Yeah.
And it also keeps the wind from blowing up.
That's always good.
Yeah. So bought one that's made with rabbit fur and has 3 rabbit's feet on them.
Cute.
And then my ski and do. And
More like ski and don't. Sorry. I had to.
yeah. And then they knew something was up because her hair was done still.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't taken my hair down. I had much longer hair then. It was like not quite to my waist, but
Yeah.
it was long, and so they'd done this whole big thing with it. And when I finally did take it down, it had like 100-some bobby pins in it, so I hadn't bothered to take it down. And so we were in the shop where we were getting the sporran, and a lady came up and just kind of asked, she was like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Or what? She just started a conversation with us, and I said, "Oh, we got married this morning," and she was like, "I thought you had fancy wedding hair." Like, yeah.
And then we resumed the drinking up the Royal Mile, and we got to the spot we were going to pick up the car that we had hired. They told us to give us a call when you're ready. So is a place called Deacon Brody's. And we get there, and I go in. I said, "Can someone call this number and tell them that we're ready?" And they said yes, and they called. And we went back out, and there was an American couple that were sitting there who were, I don't know if they were expats or just long-term vacationers that are often going there. That was their spot.
Yeah.
And they said, "So what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, we just got married." "Did you get married in Gretna Green?" I said, "No, we got married at Castle Dalhousie," or Dalhousie at the time. And they go, "Well, that's awesome. Let's buy you a drink." And she goes, "That is really nice. Can I have a coffee?" And I go,
At that point,
and I said, "I'll have a whiskey." And so I had another whiskey, and then the car came, and we went back to the castle. And dinner, the actual formal dining room of Castle Dalhousie is in the dungeon.
Oh, fun.
And so we went.
And it was part of the package that we paid for was a private dinner.
Yeah.
So like we were in a little area where there was like a whole little knight's
armor
and everything, and it was like a private room. It was just the two of us. And yeah, so that was part
Yeah.
of what
So
we paid for.
yeah, so she had drunk so much during the day she really couldn't eat.
I was going to say, it's been a long day, you guys.
I was dehydrated
Yeah.
and drunk, and the dinner was actually even delayed because when we got back to the castle, they were like, "Can we move you back a little bit?"
Before we even left, Kimmy says, "Is 8 o'clock good, or do you want us? Can we go back to 10?" And she goes, "Sure, we'll move it to 10."
Yeah.
And then 10 was not enough time for her. But it was like venison, a carpaccio. There was all kinds of wonderful things brought to the table. And because she wasn't eating, the chef thought she was dissatisfied.
Oh no.
So they kept sending stuff out.
Like more and more stuff. I was like, oh, no, it's so good. I can't. I can't.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I ate what she couldn't because I can always eat. And yeah.
Well, because I wouldn't have had to. So this is one of my favorite things to tell people about the whole like contract that we signed for the venues. You know, it was all the basic stuff and, you know, all the stuff that you pay for and everything. And maybe this isn't all wedding contracts because, you know, I haven't done a lot of them, but there was actually a clause in the venue contract that if any member of your party vomits, you have to pay $250.
Oh no.
Or pounds or whatever. Yeah. So
What
I
if
thought
it's like
that was funny.
What is like a norovirus? Those super contagious ones, and do you still have to put that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there was none of that. She held
was
because
not gonna be
she's
any of
not
that.
thrown up since what, 1996?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. She's
Separate
got a
episode.
record going.
That's impressive.
Yeah, she's almost 30 years from that.
What's your trick?
Well, I never drink till I'm sick. And I normally feel bad enough before I get to the point that I would actually throw up that like I already feel bad and I don't want to drink anymore. And I'm deathly afraid of it. Like I hate it. I've always told him that like if I ever do get sick and throw up, he needs to be like prepared that I'm going to get like absolutely dramatic and like feel like I have to go to the emergency room and just like lose my mind because like it's to me that's just like the worst thing ever.
Wow.
So yeah, there's probably times when I would feel better, I think, but I fight it. So
Have you ever had like an angry vomit? You've been so mad you just vomited.
No.
I've done that. Like sometimes it feels like a rebellion. Like I'm just gonna vomit to express my anger, not in front of anyone. Obviously.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not healthy. I don't know, but sometimes
I would say it's probably not. No.
I just feel like sometimes if I'm super upset and I get mad, I'm just gonna go throw up and like prove something to
that's
nobody.
expressive. That is expressive.
Anyway,
So while we were in Edinburgh, this was, I believe, the day of the wedding. After we had gotten married, we took one of our hired cars, and the guy says, "You're from America?" Yeah. You like Johnny Cash?
oh,
And we're like,
Of all
sure. He's like, "'Cause I love Johnny Cash. Do you mind if I play some?" He had a CD case
He just whips out this case
of
like
nothing but Johnny Cash and put some Johnny Cash in. And so then it was the time when, not Brexit, but when the Scottish people were voting to stay with the UK or not.
It was like within a couple
It was
weeks
within
of it.
2 weeks of that. And so we talked about that. And then he says, so what are you doing next? I said, we're only here till tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow morning. He says, where are you going then? I said, to London. And he says, why? I said, because it's London. He says, okay. Scotland doesn't understand why the fascination is about London.
I don't think they're fans.
They're not. They don't really care.
is it like a political thing?
Partly.
Okay.
And just the way they're
Just an
treated.
ornery.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot to see in London, so
Oh yeah, well there was.
Yeah.
So that we oddly enough, we were only in Scotland in Edinburgh for 3 days. The day we got there, the day before we got married, the day we got married. Then the next morning we left on a first class train to London.
So you didn't have time to do one of those like Nessie sighting boat tours.
No.
Gosh,
No.
that's on. I would love to do one of those.
We gotta go back.
Yeah,
Love
we
Nessie.
definitely will go back.
Okay.
But so then we took that 4-hour train ride to London and got into one of the nicest hotels we've either ever seen. I don't even remember the name of it. Was
Bloomsbury.
The Bloomsbury.
Is it a Radisson Blue?
No, Bloomsbury.
Okay,
it's
okay.
it's part of a boutique
Oh, okay.
house. Like not, it's not a house, but there's like 4 in this collection. It's a collection hotel.
It was almost across the street, a little bit catty corner, but like if you looked out the window at the right angle, it was like right across the street from the British Museum.
Ooh,
So yeah, it was
okay.
like that.
It was on Tottenham Court Lane.
Okay.
And I had recently decided that I was a Tottenham Hotspur fan, so I thought that was cool. Tottenham Hotspur do not play anywhere near Tottenham Court Lane, but we're actually closer to Arsenal, which is our bitter rivals. But but it was so cool. It was funny because when you get to London, they know there's a lot of Americans there. And you look down before you get ready to cross the street, it says, look left.
Instead of, okay, that's a good idea.
And it's true when they say, mind the gap. So you don't, because on the tube, the tube, as they call it, the underground.
Yeah,
there's
a person can fit in
a
that.
person can fall through, so you have to be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, a small person. I wouldn't have fell through, but you might have.
Thank you.
And Stephanie probably could have.
It's the nicest thing anyone's ever said.
But it's just minor things like that that's really awesome. But London or England itself gets a lot of flack for their food not being fantastic, but we didn't have a bad meal in London.
We did the traditional
Yeah,
stuff.
well, we
did the pub
I
food.
will say I did not care for the fish and chips. We did it in a pub. I much rather have it here at Finnegan's Wake. It was much better. But we had Indian food. That
I was
really
like,
good.
we have to have curry before we leave.
Yeah.
That's just
Love
the thing.
Indian food.
Yeah, so we had that. We went to a couple of things. We did the Jack the Ripper tour, and that was really cool. They took you on the supposed, I wonder how accurate it was, but they were pretty convincing. Accurate, I mean, the tour as to where all this was happening. And I remember it said, you're standing exactly in the spot where next to the penultimate victim died, and blah, 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 blah. But it was entertaining and educational within reason. I mean, again, I don't know how accurate it truly was, but it was pretty cool.
And I mean, one of the things I liked about it even was that, so London, of the places that we've been, and the cities that we visited, London was the one place that it felt big everywhere. Like it just felt, there was like a crush of people.
Oh, wow.
Everywhere we went, like you would go down a side street and there were still just people everywhere. Like everything felt crowded.
Well, until we got to New York.
Yeah, but but it was similar to New York in that way, that it was just like there was never like a half empty elevator or whatever. It was just like everything was full all the time. So, kind of, and that was, I remember that just being one of my first things is like, stepping off the tube, into an area, it was like immediately, it was just like walking into a crowd of people. So taking that tour, like one of the things I kind of liked about it is that it started leading us down these, back streets and back neighborhoods, or you look at supposedly where Jack the Ripper lived and things like that. And it got us
the area, because no one knows who he is, so they didn't know exactly where he lived.
right. But, theoretically, but just being on the tour, that kind of winding us back into some neighborhoods, it was really the only opportunity while we were there, I think, to feel kind of like
Local.
Yeah.
like in the streets. So
Yeah, so we spent 4 days there, double-decker bus tours.
and we did the little side trip to Bath,
Oh, yeah, we went to Bath, Salisbury, and
Stonehenge.
Yeah.
I was about to ask. I'm like, where is Stonehenge?
So here's the funny thing about it was supposed to have been Bath, Salisbury, Stonehenge. Well, they had to change things up. So we went to Salisbury first, went to the famous church, saw one of the original copies of the Magna Carta,
Oh.
and then got on the bus to Stonehenge. And then we were ushered out really quickly because as soon as we got out, a helicopter landed President Obama
No way.
and he stood in the middle of Stonehenge. We were not allowed in the middle of Stonehenge.
That is crazy.
He was.
Why was he
NATO,
there?
I think NATO was meeting.
NATO was meeting.
It wasn't
and-
just the photo shoot.
No, and he wanted to see it and got off the helicopter and walked right into the middle of it.
Yeah, we were one of the last, our group was one of the last tours before they.
It was the last tour
Yeah.
before, because as soon as we
Let
left,
everybody
then the helicopter landed.
And when we were in Bath, I don't know why this is the main thing I remember after seeing the baths and things, but there was this little pub that we went in while we were waiting for the bus, and honest to God, it was like we were stuck in a BBC show. There was a guy there drinking, and his wife came in and yanked him out of the pub.
It's time for you to go home.
Yeah, it was like a classic British comedy thing, back in the neck collar, dragging her husband out of the pub.
But I'm
That
not
was
finished with my drink. You're finished. You're finished. You're coming home.
That is amazing.
And that's where we had, I had the ham and Swiss crisps, potato chips that were ham and cheese flavored.
Oh yeah, and it was the London trip. It wasn't that place, but it was a place we ate in London where I confused the lady trying to order eggs a certain way. So again, just for you, I think when we talk about our travels, it's important for us to admit the things that we kind of
Screwed
we're
up, yeah.
dumb Americans about. And so one of the ways I was a dumb American is that I did not know that the whole 50 different ways that you can have an egg is basically an American thing. I did not know this. So we went in this one restaurant, and
It was for lunch, but there was still
but there was
time.
ham and chips and stuff like that, and it came with eggs, and I was like, oh great. And so I just very innocently I said, the ham and chips, and then the eggs over medium. And she just looks at me a second. She was like, I'm sorry, what? And I was like, over medium. And she looks at me a little, and she goes, you do want them cooked? And I was like, yes. And she was like, well, we cook them. She was like, you have them scrambled or fried? And I was like, fried.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no sunny side up. There
There's none
is
of
no
that.
over easy. There's no over medium. There's not over well. It's, you get it.
They need to
They're
get
basically
on,
sunny side up, actually, but they won't know what it means if you say sunny side up, but
Yeah.
that's what they are.
What did you say?
They need to branch out.
I know.
And get on the train of
I
egg
know.
variations.
Egg variations, yes. And then from there, we took the Channel train.
Oh, the Eurostar.
Yeah, the Eurostar to Paris. And we had already known that we wanted to go to Paris because we had been there the year before. We spent 5 days there the year before. And, we spent 4 days there. We stayed there 5 nights. And one of those was the Mont Saint Michel's trip in 2013. This is back to 2014. We did the Bohemian walking tour, and we had a tour guide that we met at is it Pantheon or Parthenon? I never remember which is where.
I think the Pantheon is in Rome.
Yeah, I think it's Parthenon.
So Parthenon. Marie Curie is buried there. Her husband's buried there. Voltaire is buried there. Anyway, we met there with our tour guide, Arturo.
Who I unapologetically had a crush on. I just not I don't care. I'm on my honeymoon. I was like,
I
"Babe,
had a crush.
I have
on
a crush
him,
on the
so
tour guide."
It's all good.
Yeah.
Short, curly haired. He looked like. Did you see the bear? The movie, the show, The Bear. No. Well, he looked kind of. Looking back, he kind of reminded me of the bear.
A little bit, except he had darker hair and eyes and stuff. But yeah.
But
I took a picture, by the way. I snuck a pic. Yeah.
But it was us and 8 Australians.
Fun.
So he took us on this tour. We ended up at this place called I don't know what is in French. My dining room table, basically.
Masalda
Cuisine.
cuisine. Yeah, I think something close to that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's better at. I'm better at pronouncing it. She's better at knowing what it is. And it was actually the whole place was about half the size of this room.
Oh, wow.
And but the kitchen was in the basement, and you had to go up 2 flights of stairs to bring anything up. And it was all included, so it was just bread and cheese, basically. And to even go to the bathroom, you had to go down those 2 flights of steps. And I'm a large guy, and I had to like sideways walk down the steps to get down there, and then sideways to walk back up. But after we had our dinner there, or the lunch there, we saw where Jim Morrison died from the Doors. We went by Luxembourg Castle or
Gardens,
the Jardin de Luxembourg. We went
all
by
the street art, all the little aliens and little hidden street art,
and the fountain where newlyweds were supposed to kiss, and we did. There's a picture. We went back.
He took it for us.
Oh.
Yeah, and we went when we went in 20.
Yes.
Yeah. He says, you can call me Arthur, but we're going to go with Arturo. But we went back in 2022. We took a selfie in front of that same fountain.
Oh.
But then we went and we played pétanque, which is bocce ball, basically, but it's the French version, in this courtyard outside the Salade de Cuisine. And there's pictures of me playing pétanque.
A little square. And he had like a whole little kit he opened up.
Yeah.
He had like a little thing with like the whole play kit and like a little bottle of Ricard and little cups and poured everybody like Ricard. It was cute.
And then he said, okay, well, the tour ends here. If you want, I'm walking back towards Notre Dame if anybody wants to go. And they all the Australians decided they were going off. So just the 2 of us and Arturo walked to Notre Dame, where he told us about Pont Zero, which is where you stand and you put your 1 foot on it and you walk in a circle. And if you do that, then you will end up going back. This is before the burning of Notre Dame. He gave us a really good recommendation for dinner that night. It was our last night in Paris.
It was all the way in Montmartre, I think,
Montmartre,
too. I didn't fully realize that's where we were until we went back. And I was like, oh, I've seen this before.
Yeah. There's just being there, and we went to a street market, and we were on the way to that tour. We stopped at this little bakery cafe thing. They did not speak very much English.
Yeah.
They actually brought out the menus, and I said, anglais. And
See, that's what I'm worried about.
No.
they were
And she
fine.
brought it back out, and someone else came and waited on us.
Okay.
But sitting there, you saw the kids going to school, because this was a school day, just walking across the street by themselves, and their parents weren't with them, any of that stuff. You have the businessmen in ties and suits and stuff on bicycles. And it was quintessential what you would think a neighborhood in Paris would look like.
We got pretty deep into a neighborhood that day, I think.
You walk by a school that all those kids were going, but this was high school students.
I ended up on a train full of high school students in Italy once on accident, and they actually had to help me because I got on the total. Sometimes the trains come early, but not too early, so you think it's your train, and if you don't check, then you just get on the wrong train. And so, I got on the train, and there's a bunch of teenagers on it, and I'm like, well, this is weird, but whatever. I don't live here. How would I know? And so the train starts moving, and I realize I'm on the wrong train. And so I get off at the next stop, which is like the school. And one of the high school girls was like, do you need help? I'm like, yes. And so she just told me, she's like, you might as well just walk back to the main station. It was like a 20-minute walk. But anyway, I ended up on a train full of high schoolers. So anyway, continue.
Was that the trip that was the trip with Lobot, wasn't it?
No, it was the first one.
Okay.
The first one.
We'll save that for another time.
We'll save that for another time. And then the next stop was in Bruges, in Belgium. We highly suggest Bruges.
Okay.
And what we were talking about in a previous episode, Bruges is definitely a place to go. I recommend also watching the movie In Bruges with Colin Farrell and Brandon Gleeson and Ralph Fiennes to get a feel for the idea of what Bruges is.
Hopefully, nothing that happens in that movie happens to you in Bruges, but it's
a violent movie.
Now I'm intrigued.
yes.
Yeah,
but you do see it does show a lot of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went there and stayed in Ode Puy House. It was one of the ones that you actually had to. The key to the room was on a metal piece of whatever, and you had to put that in the slot in the wall for the lights to come on. It had heated bathroom floors.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
Excellent bar.
an excellent bar. But when you left, you had to leave the key with the front desk.
Is it because there's canals? People
Well,
throw their keys in the
You
canal.
know
Yeah.
what?
I've
That's
heard
it,
about that in Amsterdam.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's-
that's probably part of it, and two, because it was metal and easy to lose. But you're probably right.
Okay.
Because the thing about Bruges is it is beautiful, but it stinks because
Smelly.
it smells like sewer.
Oh.
But after the first little bit, you totally forget that.
It's mostly in street corners.
Yeah.
Like, you can like.
Yeah, where the
kinda
manhole
gathers
covers
a little
are.
bit,
Yeah, because that's where everything gathers. But Bruges is known for lace and chocolate and beer. And we went to the beer museum and did all that great stuff. And we went to, they have these jellies, not jellies like you put on bread and stuff, but the candy jellies.
Looks like jelly beans,
They actually
but
call
not-
these, there's like jelly beans, but they call these nose jellies because they're shaped like noses.
Ooh.
Yeah,
The
they're like
funny thing-
cones. Yeah.
And the funny thing was, they have meat byproducts.
Yeah, because they're gelatin.
Because they're gelatin. So, and right before we came in, there was a Muslim couple come in, and the lady there said, "I've got to tell you that there's animal byproduct in here."
And it
And
could
we're
be
like-
pork or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and we're like, okay. She goes, "I have to tell you that because I forgot to tell the couple who walked out with a whole package of them before you came in."
Yeah, she's like, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not God. It's not going to matter. But they were so good. We ate those for 2 or 3 weeks when we got home because they travel well.
And it was I have a picture that I took of you, and it's just, I mean, this is just a European thing. It's definitely not just a Bruges thing, but just walking down a street, and there was next door to each other. There was a children's toy store, children's toys, and it was next door to a sex shop. This is like sex
no.
toys. So he's
But
literally like,
in
what are you both
Europe,
like,
that's
yeah,
nothing.
look at this.
No.
No one
Yeah.
cares. It was not just a sex shop. It was more like the BDSM kind of sex shop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But
And like the chocolate shops all had like, they had, chocolates everywhere, but then there was always a section that had like chocolate nipples.
Right.
Just like random. Yeah,
yeah,
it was.
chocolate nipples, not chocolate penises, all that stuff. Because in Europe, there's a
Whatever.
whole different view on that stuff than there is here. So we bought some lace, we bought some chocolate, we bought the nose jellies.
Oh, I'm going to rat us out as the dumb American everywhere.
Okay.
So that was where we made our very best friend, Victor.
Yes.
Our very best friend.
Yeah. So when we get there, we went to this restaurant. I forget the name of the restaurant, but the server's name was Victor. And we've had this discussion before, Amy. I've never met a stranger, right? So we get there. Hey, and I'm making short talk, small talk with him. And then we tip him
Yeah.
like Americans do.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't do that there.
No.
So we went back that evening for dinner.
Yeah, 'Cause it's a small city.
It's, a small
There's
city.
not
It's
a
really
lot.
not a whole lot unless you do a lot of exploring. And this was at the end of this is next to last stop, right? So we were getting kind of tired. And we walked back down there. He saw us. He came out, my very best friends.
Here, please sit at my table.
So we sat and watched. There was some guy who had just gotten engaged or whatever, and he had long hair, and they had him wrapped up in cellophane and tied to
Yeah, it was like his bachelor party.
his bachelor party. They tied him to a post in the middle of the square and had like Bon Jovi stuff on him, had his like makeup on him.
Oh,
He
wow.
was tied up. He couldn't move.
Yeah, we took pictures.
And we took pictures, yeah. So, but we took a carriage ride in Bruges.
And the tower had a concert the last night. Like the kind of iconic thing in Bruges is this, huge tower.
Church tower.
And
Bell
so
tower.
yeah, and so it has bells, but then it also, I don't know how many bells it has up in it, but apparently they had concerts during the summer. And this was the end of summer because it was, beginning of September. And so the last night we were there, we were eating on the square and they were just playing music, through the bells in this tower for like an hour. I mean,
Yeah,
it was,
we thought it was
really
but
nice.
it turns out that was the final show of the year.
Oh, wow.
They would not come back until April.
You guys got lucky.
Yeah, so it was awesome. And then we left the next day after the third night. We only spent 3 nights there, 4 nights in Paris, 4 nights London, 3 nights in Edinburgh. And then to catch the plane home, we went back to Brussels. And I'll be honest with you, 100%, I hate Brussels.
People have said it's really overrated.
Yeah.
It's a gray, miserable city. I mean, it's the capital of the EU, right? So it's just a lot of business.
It's
a
like
lot
being
of
in DC, but not the pretty part, like not the mall, but like the rest of DC.
yeah.
you know?
The Grand Place, was beautiful. That's where. Is that where the mannequin piece is?
It's not that far away from there.
Yeah,
It's about a block
so-
off.
Is there like a peeing statue?
Yeah,
there?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
okay,
it. The
okay.
mannequin piece.
Got it.
It's actually what it's called.
Perfect.
But we were there, and I was so annoyed because I just do not like Brussels.
Wow.
But I said, you know what? We have this really nice hotel. Let's go to this really nice hotel and just set, because we had to pack and get ready to fly home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we were like 14, 15 days in,
Yeah,
to this
yeah.
trip, and we were tired.
And this was a 5-star resort, a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we tried to sightsee, and we'd already seen pretty much the nicest part was in Grand Place, and we'd gone back there and had lunch.
Yeah.
But it was just things were starting to go wrong, and we tried to take the subway somewhere, and the subway was not great. It was
They were doing a whole lot of construction on the subway stations, and there's only like 4 or 5 stations.
Yeah.
So it was that I remember, but it was like a bunch of plywood and cages, and didn't look safe. It didn't
Yeah.
look. It wasn't.
Yeah,
at all
every place
pleasing.
felt sketchy. I took a picture of there was this one street that we were walking down, and someone had done graffiti or something on the fence, and it wasn't like they hadn't spray painted it because it was like a chain link fence, but they put stuff in it or whatever. So it says "Enjoy your traffic jam." And took a picture of that. So
Yeah.
it was just. It wasn't like nothing was really working, and we were like starting to just get kind of like just exhausted, and then one
So
of
I'm
us was
we're
just
in a,
like,
we're
"This
in a
is the nicest
5-star
hotel."
hotel, so
Yeah.
let's go. And she agreed.
And we were very proud of our, newly
Restraint.
married ability to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
We're like,
and
why are we
rest-
forcing this? Let's
Yeah,
just
and restraint.
Right.
I mean, we've done all this. We've had a full trip. I mean, 14, 15 days, right? So we go to this restaurant that's in the hotel. It's a 4-star restaurant and a 5-star hotel. And 4 stars for a restaurant is the equivalent of a 5-star hotel. So we were the first ones in there. And we sit down, and the server was really good for us, going over the menu and stuff. We both ordered this. This I'm going to let you know up front. This is a very American thing that we swore we'd never tell. But we'll see how that goes. So
it's the London Maid.
So we ordered the same appetizer. It was a salmon appetizer.
I remember it had salmon and dill. I remember those were like the two main. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an appetizer, and it was like, $15 or 18 euros or something a piece. And then we ordered other things. We had a full spread of stuff. And we heard this couple, they were Canadian or American or something. They spoke with an accent that was similar to ours. And we heard them talking about stuff, and they brought these two dishes. And again, we got the same thing, right? So they put this little bitty salmon thing. It was about the size of a 50-cent piece.
Yeah, picture like one of those little like salt dishes or whatever, like a little butter pat dish kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they sat that down, and she and I looked at each other like, what the hell is this? And
had a tiny little sprig of dill
had
on
a
the top.
little tiny sprig of dill and the salmon there. And I heard again they said, I think we're going to do this salmon salad. And I'm sitting there thinking, are you sure? You might want to reconsider that. But anyway, they it turns out it wasn't a amuse-bouche, because then they brought the full salmon appetizer.
False alarm.
And we were both like, we are never telling anybody about this. But
they put the plates down with the appetizer, and we would just start laughing. And the lady's kind of looking at us, and we didn't say anything. We were just kind of like, thanks. So she puts it down, and she walks away. And I just looked at him. I said, honey, we're hillbillies. Like, we did not know what we were talking about.
Yeah, that was so American. But the whole meal was a fine spread of stuff. The hotel, the experience in that hotel, all coming to an end after a 2-week mega vacation, basically. It was so magical, so memorable, that we really do appreciate, Amy, you first of all, and then the listeners who will sit through this. Because we never shy away from the opportunity to tell this story. And it truly was fairy tale-like in a lot of ways. And
and I'm sure too, I think it's as your first guest. I think as one of the reasons that you guys put together this podcast is because I feel like that's probably more than half of the reason to even travel, right? What is the fun of traveling if you don't get to look back years later and laugh over, mistakes that you made or people that you met, or like tell it's the stories. And it's not even like, there's very little. We did a lot of sightseeing. I took a lot of pictures. I will go back sometimes and look at pictures, and there are just pictures of buildings in Paris. I don't know why I took that picture. I don't know what it is. Some tour guide was talking about it, so I took a picture. Like, I have no idea, but I will always remember our guide's name. Like, there's just, it's all those little things. That's the whole point of traveling. So, like, for you guys to like indulge us so we can talk about our little goofy things. That's the fun of it.
No, I agree.
yeah.
But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed hearing it. It sounds like it was pretty much an amazing trip.
It certainly was.
And you've also taught me and everyone listening a lot of valuable stuff about the marriage visa and sponsor us. What were those bags called? The vacuum?
Space bags.
Space bags.
Sponsor us,
yes.
please.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yes, we
saved my hiney.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was great, and thank you all for allowing us to gush over it.
Well, anytime. Please come back. This was fun.
Yay.
Yeah, because we got to go over the engagement story too.
Stay tuned.
Yes, and the first Europe trip, that was pretty.
The first
that's
Europe
pretty
trip,
awesome,
yeah,
too.
yeah, and the Paris thing. We've talked about why I love Paris, but I would love for you to have some input on there because part of my love for Paris is that you're a lover of Paris. So, yeah,
And one of the things that I will just kind of just kitchen sink in with the rest of it, because a lot of people who haven't traveled, extensively or like haven't been to Europe will ask about like, whether or not you feel safe and everything. And I would suggest y'all just have a whole show about like being safe overseas and how you do that.
we'll get you a Tim.
Yes. Yeah. Bring Tim. But the honeymoon trip in particular. So there were other trips that we took, but the honeymoon trip in particular, I always tell people, one of the things I remember about it was that like 2 days before we left, it was like right before we left for the trip. Well, first the volcano in Iceland erupted.
The Reykjavik.
And they didn't think we were even going to be able to go because the ash cloud or whatever.
What?
And that cleared up. But just before we left
In the
was
UK.
when there was a terrorist incident in the UK. It was the whole Jihadi John thing. And they raised the terror threat in the UK to like red.
Yeah.
They weren't quite to the point of saying don't come, but they were like, there's a high threat. And even like the photographer for our wedding, one of the things that I think is probably typically part of the package is she took a picture of the day's newspaper, with our date on it and everything, which was very sweet. But she cropped it almost all the way up to like just to the date because like the first thing on the headline is about this guy getting beheaded, and this is not.
Yeah, you don't want that
romantic.
in your album.
But for all that, I mean, and people were saying at the time, they were like, "Are you still going to go?" We were like, "Hell yeah, we're going to go!" Like,
Yeah.
this is our wedding, and why wouldn't we? But we definitely noticed things. We noticed that there was a heightened awareness. We noticed that there was like police presence, that there were things going on, but we still had an awesome time and we felt safe. And, you were just aware you would see, police or folks walking around, armed, you saw that kind of stuff, but always felt like safe and taken care of. And, so don't let fear keep you from going on these trips. So
Fear will always be your biggest deterrent. And truthfully, it's cliche, and the only thing you have fear is fear itself. That's not always true, but it's mostly true. The fear of something happening is much stronger than the actual probability of something happening. Unlike, like Amy, we talked in that episode of our bucket list places.
Yeah.
If political climate and all that stuff was not a thing, I would not go to Iran right now.
Probably not.
But I would love to see it. But I would only want to go if I knew that I was in no danger.
Right.
But at that point, if there's no risk, then all the excitement's gone from
Exactly.
it. So not that I want something to happen, but there's always the chance that something might, and anything can happen. But
A rogue camel.
a rogue camel can just run you over. His name's Clyde. So, Stephanie, thank you for being our first guest.
you're welcome.
Yeah. So I said I would tell you the story of the Weird Al in the last episode. Weird Al and how his fan club had to do with Stephanie indirectly. I'm going to say it real quick and get this over with.
Aw.
Weird Al's fan club is called Close Personal Friends of Al.
Oh, I was curious. I was waiting. Okay.
So-
I see it now.
Everything that Stephanie does online, her presence, and on the less desirables, we call her the BCPF. Because when we were first friends, we were not dating. She was separated. I was separated, hadn't done my divorce. She certainly was fresh off hers.
He had a big old crush on me.
And I did. And but we would do things but not date. And I would always
By do things, he means
Yeah,
like spend time together.
Kind of like getting piped down. We need to clarify.
yeah. We got piped down, girl.
He means be in the same room and like have a drink.
Yeah,
Okay,
or
I'm just
go
saying.
to things.
Okay.
And on the less desirables, because I like to keep anonymity as user friendly as possible. I used to say, I had a great weekend. My beautiful close personal friend and I went and did this. My beautiful close personal friend and I did that. My beautiful close personal friend. And finally, I'm like, that's just a mouthful. I'm just going to start saying the BCPF.
That's awesome.
And from that point, her Twitter handle, she's not on Twitter anymore, but her Instagram,
It's still
all
there,
that
but I'm
stuff,
not gonna look at it. Yeah.
her Instagram, all that stuff is the BCPF.
Oh, okay. That's like the highest caliber of friend zone you can possibly get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Goals.
yeah, yeah. And then look where
Still,
it
I
got
think
us.
even on Facebook, like that's what it says. Like my occupation is official.
The official
Beautiful.
BCPF of the less
Really
desirables. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you have any questions, Amy, before we sign out of here?
No, I think we covered everything. Again, I really
Yeah, because I'm verbose.
well,
You're gonna let Amy talk next time,
no,
right?
I really enjoyed it. Again, I'm looking forward to the engagement episode as well.
Yeah.
That'll be funny.
It will. It will. Well, Pan A Pan is part of the Less Desirables podcast network, where you can listen to our podcast as well as the Less Desirables, Fan Interference, The Man Who Ate the Town, Beeswax Vinyl Daily, Wheeler's Dog, The Asylum Podcast, I Remember Now, The Queen's Right Podcast, and Health Geeks Book Club. That list just keeps growing, and I love it. You can listen to our podcast on our website or any podcatcher of your choice, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and the video is also, by this time, we will have video. Basically, anywhere you find podcasts. And, of course, on the Less Desirables Network page, tldpodnetwork.com. Find out all you need to know about all those network shows right there. TLD Pod Network. If you have something to say to us, you can email Tim or Amy at peppodcast.com. Look us up on our social channels, and if you want to be really cool, you can call and leave a voicemail at 336-422-6862. We will play your voicemail on the air. I've not mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it because I'm supposed to, plus I want to. We record this episode, or this podcast, in the Omnivera Studios at Liberty Plaza. For all your general contractor needs, I do encourage you to visit omniverus.com. So,
Yeah.
If anyone has been piped down in Scotland, please call in.
that's right. Or have you been piped down anywhere?
Oh, and all you have to do is Google Dalhousie Castle, and like the first picture you'll see is like Andrew. He is the castle.
Yeah.
Sweet
He
little
was in
Andrew.
the picture that I sent you.
Oh, yeah, those are
Yeah.
great pictures, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michaela.
Yep.
The photographer's name was Michaela.
Also, shout out Kimmy and Arturo.
Yes.
Yes. It was a good episode. Thank you. My name's Tim.
I'm Amy.
Oh, and the BCPF.
That's right. And until next time.
Ciao. The views and opinions stated on this podcast are solely those of the contributors, so if you don't like it, that's too bad. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be used without the express written consent of such and such media.
We done told you.